What's up guys, I'm back from vacation and I'm back to filming. We've got a little bit of a rainy day today, so sorry if there's any kind of audio problems or anything, but we're gonna get started on this quarter panel replacement. As you see, it's already nearly done. I just have to do some grinding and some body work, but let's show you exactly like where we started with this whole thing, what we had to do, and where we're at now. If you watched my earlier video on the Nova, you've seen that the bottom of the quarter panel was just horrible, completely rusted out. So I had to cut this entire section out. I got these Goodmark quarter panels that welded in there and they held their shape really well. There's a little bit of distortion in here from, putting in the butt welds, and it's coming along pretty well for my first quarter panel replacement for sure. So basically I just took a Sharpie and outlined exactly where I wanted to cut this nasty old sheet metal out. And then I made sure that all my corners were rounded, because if you have a sharp corner and you put some heat in there, it's super easy to distort it. So I had to cut this whole section out and then round off the corners, weld it in. And it was just a lot of shaping and taking my time to make sure that everything fits correctly, but it all works. Now, since I like to be completely transparent, on the inner lip of the wheelhouse where you would typically plug weld the quarter panel to, it was all rusted away. There was a couple spots that were still a little there and reusable, so I just pretty much made little tabs that went all the way around the inside of that, and then I welded that to the inner wheel tubs. So I've seen people use earlier model Novas and kind of hack them up and still make them work, but I just know that like I'm going to take this thing down a drag strip and be pretty rough on it. So, and it's not really going to see any rain, so there's not going to be any snow or rain or anything on this thing. So little tabs that I welded on the inside, that should be plenty enough to reinforce it. But as you can see though, it's super solid, and I just have to go through and just kind of keep on welding and just go in between every single spot weld that I've done so far. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video, is just getting this thing finished up. All right, so what I'm doing is just welding up little spot welds, and I'm moving back and forth from area to area. That way I don't put too much heat in one part, because if you stay focused on one part, it makes it really hot. And then because there's so much tension on these panels that you don't realize, and they just start bending and warping whenever you put too much heat in them. So I'm kind of just like moving back and forth across the panel, avoiding, putting too much heat in one area. And same thing when I'm grinding the welds down, because if you stay on one spot weld and just grind it, it gets so hot and it just wants to warp almost immediately. All right, so here's where we're at so far. Just working my way down through here, trying to smooth all this stuff out. And then we're probably gonna do a couple more tabs on the backside of this like inner lip here. It's pretty solid. I mean, it's really solid, but I just wanna make sure that it's not gonna break or anything. And I'm kind of focusing up here for right now. That way I'll move all my equipment and then come back here and finish off this back half. But everything looks pretty good. This is never going to be a perfectly solid panel, just because what we're working with, the car's already very rusted out. That's how these unibodies work. So we're just going to do the best we can to make it look good and hold up to some powers. All right, so I've got that ground down as much as I'm going to get it, and it looks pretty straight across through there. There's some little minor imperfections along the way, but we're going to go ahead and put some body filler on it and start to blend this stuff in, and then just kind of work it out, shape it the way it needs to be. So we'll probably start with this top line first and then just kind of work our way around. All right, so I've got the first little layer of Bondo on there, and I'm just gonna let that set up. But I had to layer it on super thick because I put a little too much hardener in it probably, and it just started drying up right away. So we're just gonna let this dry here, and then we're gonna start to block sand this thing out. All right, so I know it seems monotonous, but now we put another layer on there, and that just kind of like fills in the little imperfections, and then we'll go through and then block sand it again, and then that should be enough. We might put like a little bit of a glazing putty on top of it, but we're just trying to kind of blend everything in along the top, and then we'll go down the sides. I still haven't really got that figured out yet, but, and then we got to get this little problem spot down here. So, and I know it looks like there's like a gallon of Bondo on here, but I spread it wide, that way I can feather it in and make sure it's really smooth. So there's not as much Bondo as it probably looks like on camera. So it's a very thin layer of Bondo, just spread pretty far, that way we can really blend these things in and get a smooth finish on it. All right, we're gonna call this good for this panel. So as you can see, there's a little bit of like some tiger stripes. That's just from a little rattle can primer that I was using. And that's just a self etcher just to keep some of the rust off until we are actually able to prime this thing and paint it. So, which is gonna be sitting here in the barn. But if there's any kind of like big temperature changes and there's any kind of like condensation on here or anything, that can cause some rust too. So we're just trying to make sure it's sealed up. That way we can give it a little bit of protection. It's pretty straight down through there and looks pretty good. It's got, again, that tiger striping that's making it look weird, but yeah, everything looks really good. I was able to blend in all the edges and feather it in real nice, and it appears like it's the factory quarter panel. Everything is super solid. That will handle plenty of vibrations and everything if we take this thing down the drag strip, which is coming very soon, I promise. I gotta do the passenger side of the car still. This is just obviously the driver's side. Driver's side is pretty much done. There's a couple little spots like on the fender I gotta just fix up, but we're gonna continue working with the body work on this. But yeah, the passenger side has not been touched yet. So I have to do the same quarter panel and probably a rocker panel on that side too. So like I said, this thing's gonna be built for drag racing. So I've got a checklist of everything that I need to do to get this car to pass inspection. So it's a lot of stuff. It's not gonna run any kind of crazy numbers yet, but we're gonna kind of start at the top and then just go quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. So, but I got to do some body work first. The next video for this thing will probably be the MSD stuff that I just bought for this. So it's going to be like some ignition stuff. It'll be a really solid upgrade for what we currently have in there. So stay tuned for that. Also, I want your guys' input on kind of the color combos of this thing. So the interior is red and black. So I know that, and it's fresh interior. It's barely been driven on. So I'm gonna keep the interior just like it is. So I wanna paint it black, but I'm thinking like the satin black. What I need to know is if you have any kind of like wheel recommendations or wheel colors or anything that I can set on this thing. So if you guys have any recommendations, leave them in the comments below and I will highly consider them because I wanna buy a set and just be confident that it's going to look really good. So, all right, so other than that, we are going to be putting the truck bed onto the truck today, and then we're going to be driving that soon. So if you're into the truck kind of content, then make sure you watch that video because that'll be coming really soon. But if you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.